In this video, we're going to be sharing with you some of our trade secrets in taking a JPG file of a very simple logo and converting it into a Rhinestone template. If you look at all the other Rhinestone softwares on the market right now, pretty much there isn't a lot of detailed video demonstrations on taking a real logo and making it into a Rhinestone design. And I believe the reason is because it's not simple to do. A lot of people think you can just push a magic button and presto, you have a perfect Rhinestone design. But more often than not, that's not how it happens. But if we understand certain techniques, we can simplify the process greatly with a little bit of practice. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's go ahead and import our logo. So here we have a logo. This was provided by Becky down there in Kansas City. So it's simply glamorous. You can see it's a really nice little script font. Pretty easy to convert into a Rhinestone design with various different techniques, and we're going to cover some of those here. So first things first, we have to determine what size we want our design to be. If we click on the bitmap, right now it's 4 inches wide, so let's make it about 10.5. So now the bitmap is as wide as it actually would be on a shirt. So the next thing we're going to do is determine what size stone we want to use. And typically, a lot of us use the 10SS stone, so that is a 3.2 is what I cut my stone templates at. So I'll click on the drop stone function, and all that does is drop a single stone right in the middle of my page. So there is my stone, and I'm going to bring that up, and I'm going to look at different areas of my design. So one of the areas that I might be interested in taking a look at is the letter M. If I were to put two stones right next to each other, you can see that I'm not going to be able to use a lot of stones. In fact, if I were to just kind of hand place these stones along the letter M here, that just kind of gives me a very rough idea. But you can see for that letter M, I'm only using 13 stones. Okay, so we're not going to have a whole lot of bling, are we? Because of that. So we need to consider what we might want to do for more bling for this particular file. For more bling, probably what we would want to do is use a bigger stone even than a 10SS stone. But in doing that with all this tight lettering and stuff, at this size, it would be fairly challenging to use a bigger stone. So what I suggested was that we modify the logo a little bit to make it bigger. So what I did is take our bitmap, and we were just going to grab our shape tool here. A lot of people don't know you can do this, but you can actually edit this. And you can just double click on the edge of the bitmap, and you can really edit out a lot of what you don't want on your bitmap. See there? So there is one section. And then we're going to do the same thing down here. We're going to just take this, and all we're doing this for is just to look at it. So I just want to look at it. I have an idea, say, well, maybe I want it to be like that. We can come in here and we can really, we can trim this up. We'll add a node there and pull this down. See, then we can add a node there and we can pull it down here. So that just kind of trims it up, and then I can just kind of play with it. So imagine now if I select both of those bits, if I were to scale those up to 10, or maybe we'll do it 10.5, we'll really max it out here. Now you can see that the lettering is so much larger. Let's go ahead and re-import that original so we can take a look at that again. So here's the original one. Let's go ahead and make it 10.5. And you can see how much larger in comparison that letter M is. Much larger, right? Than this. So this is going to give us a lot bigger design to work with. So let's talk a little bit about some basics. So we have our design. This is going to be our new configuration. We're going to add the star in after the fact. Now we're not going to do the entire design, but we are going to do a portion of it and show you two different techniques that work very well. And we're going to primarily work on our letter, our word glamorous here. So let's just duplicate that. So one of the things that we can do inside pretty much any Rhinestone software, the ticket is to take a JPEG, convert it to a vector, and then add stones to that vector shape. Well, and that's how most Rhinestone programs work. So let's look at that technique first. So we have our text the size that we want. We do have a function in CorelDRAW, which is called trace, as do a lot of programs. But we'll come in here, we'll do a quick trace, I guess. It just is, the Corel trace feature, I usually just use quick trace. It gets the job done. And you could see what the result was here. Let me go ahead and ungroup that. You can see what our result was. Let's go to the wireframe mode. You can see this a little bit better. And this is the result that we got. And you can see it's pretty decent, It's definitely usable. So let's just take the letter L, for example. Let's just take that letter and just bring it out by itself. So let's go back to enhanced mode here. What if we wanted to create a rhinestone design of this? Well, you can see what we need to do is we need to simplify it just a bit. So we're going to come into our shape tool, and because we have, in fact, if I were to add stones to it right now, you can see what it would do. It wouldn't look too good because right down here it's adding a stone to both sides of the line, whereas here there's only one line, so that it did pretty good. But down here it's doing both sides, so that's not going to work for us in CorelDRAW. So we're going to edit that. So it's really simple. We're just going to, let's take our design here. Let's do no fill, and let's give it an outline just so we can look at the outline by itself. And let's give it, let's use our outline tool. Let's just do a 1 pixel outline so we can see it a little bit better. All right, so what we need to do is grab our shape edit tool, and we could come in here and right click on a node and choose break apart, and just delete it back to where we have a single line there, and then same thing here. We have a single line, so we have that, and then I'm just going to add a node, and I'm going to right click and choose break apart, and then I'm going to come in here and I'm going to choose arrange and break apart. Now if we look at what we have here, we have the loop by itself and this little tail, right? So let's go ahead and add rhinestones now. Let's go back to wireframe mode so we can see this a little bit better, looking at just the stones. So now that we have this, what I would do is I just edit it a little bit. So I can take this path, right, and I can move this path up a little bit and around. You can see that there. And I'm not going to be overly concerned. I want to look at this stone and these two stones right here. And once I'm happy with those two stones, then I look at this lower part and make sure I'm happy with it. So we're going to go ahead and, we can modify this a little bit and say, okay, I'm more or less pretty happy. We're going to pull this over a little bit. I'm more or less pretty happy with that. So what I would do then is I would take both of those, break it apart, and I'm going to just delete these stones. Don't need those. Don't need this. Don't need this path. And don't need this path. And then where this comes down, I'm just going to come and add a couple extra stones to create that extra little leg that I had deleted. And when I go back to my enhanced mode, we'll get rid of all of that outlining. And again, we can kind of come in here and fine tune these rhinestones. So we just have to make a couple of minor adjustments, and then we have basically the letter L all rhinestoned out, and where that intersection is, it looks great. Okay, so that's pretty much all there is to it with that particular letter. Now let's expand on like our letter G. Okay, so what if we were to take a look at the letter G using the same technique with the vector? Well, if we go back to wireframe mode here, we can see that first of all we have two lines, which we only need that one line. This line over here is completely insignificant, so we would just right click and choose the break apart function, and we can get rid of that because we don't need any of that. Okay, and then likewise right here we'll choose break apart, and let's get rid of the extra line that we don't need. Okay, and right here I'm going to choose break apart too, and we'll get rid of this. And then right here I'm going to choose break apart, and we're going to come around, get rid of all of this, and we'll get rid of that little tail part there. Okay, so now we have something that looks like that. It doesn't look like much right now, but I'm going to come in here and break it apart, and then down here we're going to do the same thing. We're going to actually select that intersection point and choose break at nodes, and we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to select that point and choose break at nodes as well. Okay, so now that we have that, we're going to take all of those lines and we're going to click on the Add Stones button. And then we can just come in here and we can fine-tune things. So right here you can see where that intersection is happening. What I would do is I would just extend it out. And where this one's happening, I'll just pull it back. See how easy that is? So we just create that space. Probably delete that. But we create that space for us. We can fine-tune and move things around. So that kind of creates that space for us. And then down here we'll do the same thing. I'm actually going to pull this out so it comes past that point. And I might add a couple of rhinestones in there. So we can add stones to that as well until we get the spacing the way we want to. And then right here I'm going to pull this back to line up with something. And I guess we're going to line it up with this stone right here. And as we do that, you can see with this got a little bit tighter, so we'll pull that, give that like that. And then right here, where this line is, we just pull it up to that point, pull it up to that point, and there we go. All we have to do now is select all those, choose break stones, and we're going to shift these stones over a little bit. And then up here, we're just going to add a couple. And we go back to our enhance mode, get rid of all of our outlines, and now you can see there is our letter G. Okay? So it's a little bit of work in manipulating those outlines, but if you understand how to do it, you're going to get a perfect result. Now there is an alternate way to do it. And that's what we're going to show you in part 2. It's not any more automated, but I think you got to get your thinking away from automation and get your thinking to how can I create the best rhinestone design I can. And I think this next technique will be a nice technique for you as well, although it does require about as much work, but it's just a different option for you. So take a look at that video. So we're learning about taking a JPEG file and converting it into a rhinestone format. And we're going to work on a couple letters here to show you an alternate way. So we've shown you how to take and manipulate vector lines where we have double vector lines, and what we're looking to create is a single line font essentially. Well, here we're going to look at another approach. And that is and we're going to start here with our letter Y here and show you how to do it with a different approach. So we're going to grab our pen tool, and all I'm going to do is draw, click, 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 click. See, very, very simple. Hit the space bar again. Again, click, and we're just drawing straight line segments. Okay, nothing really that special there. Then we're going to switch to our shape tool, and we're going to select and convert to curve and select this line, this configuration of lines. There's 3 of them. And we're going to convert that to curve as well. Now, when we do that, we can actually click on that line and pull it, and you can see it curves. That's why it's called convert to curve. So we'll pull that line down, and we'll push this line up, and you can see how that works. Now, if we go to enhance mode, you can probably see this a little bit better, how this line is curving and whatnot. And then we kind of do the same thing down here. We'll just kind of manipulate this line here. We'll pull this line over. If I right-click over a node and choose cusp, then it only controls this portion of the line. Watch what happens. Right now, this is not a cusp. So when I click, see how both sides of the curves get adjusted? Well, I can change that. So if I come in here and have that be a cusp, then only one half of the curve, only this one section, this section up here is completely separate. Okay? So now when I add stones to this path, I click Add Stones, right-click to No Outline. You can see the stones have been added nicely. And then down here, we'll do this path, choose Add Stones, and we'll do right-click for No Outline. And now you can see where these two intersect. We have to obviously do something about that. So let's go back to wireframe mode here. And we can manipulate this a little bit so that this stone interacts with this a little bit better. Something like that is about it's about as good as you're going to get. And then down here where this looping happens, we need to make an adjustment there as well. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's pull that down. Now, because this is fairly tight, this spacing, what I think I'd do is drop a couple of stones here. Maybe, yeah, just one stone extra. So then I can fine-tune how this stone lines up with that one. Okay, and that's really what I was after there. So then once I'm happy with that, I'm going to take that grouping and break it apart and create this little leg on my letter Y. And then over here, where that had a real sharp turn there, we're just going to break those stones and do the exact same thing. We could manipulate, we could delete that one altogether and probably do something like that. So when I go into enhance mode now, and I pull all these stones away, we can look at that all by itself. And then maybe I don't like that. So maybe what I would do is I could probably take all these stones. Let's just shift select those so those aren't part of my selection. And then I could bring these stones down. Oops, I gotta add that one. Bring this stone down. And so we can kind of finesse it to get that letter Y exactly the way we want it. But you can see it really didn't take a whole lot of manipulating to get that stone just exactly the way we would want it. So let's take a look at another letter. Let's take a look at the letter S. Again, very, very simple. Grab your pen tool and go crazy. Click and 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 click. Okay, very, very straightforward. Grab your shape tool, select all those lines. We're going to convert to curve. We're going to make sure they're all cusp nodes, and that way we can create each curve, each segment of this curve can be all on its own. Okay, and we can fine tune, get it exact if we really, really want to, but really we don't need to. We just need to get it close. And you do that just by clicking and dragging. Very, very simple. This design here, this little node got a little carried away, but we can fine tune all this if we really want to get right down to the gnats. We certainly could do that. But most of your designs, you just want it fairly representative of the original. But once we have this nice path, pull that back over here. We don't know exactly where that stone's going to end. And you see a situation like this where we have this big sweeping curve and we got this little divot here. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll just double click on the line to create a node over here, double click on the line over here, and then just double click on this one in the middle, delete it, and see how it automatically smooths itself out? Sometimes that's a really easy thing to do. All right, so now that we have our basic letter S here, we would just select it, add stones to it, right click, get rid of our outline, and all we have to do is finesse this right here. So we're going to finesse it. Let's go back over to our wireframe mode. Click right there and pull it back a little bit. And as we do that, all the stones kind of shift. So we got to kind of follow Miss Daisy till we get, and I really would like to get this stone lined up with one of these here, just because I think it looks a little bit better. And sometimes we can't. See, I'm fighting it a little bit to get that stone exactly the way I want it. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to force it. We're going to cheat it. We've got a node right there. So if I just kind of come across and drop a node right there, we're going to get rid of that node. So we just make that small adjustment, and we're going to force the issue here. So what we're going to do here is we're going to get rid of our stones, so clear stones. We do have a node right there where we need it. So we're going to select it and choose the Editing tab, Break at Nodes. Now what we have now, just so you can see this, we have this bottom section and the top section are two separate sections. So I'm going to select them both, and we're going to choose Add Stones again. Now visually, you're not going to really see a whole lot of difference, really. It's very, very similar to what we had originally. The only difference is, right now, if I go back to wireframe mode here, now I can get this stone right here to line up right with that one, because that one won't budge. So now as I move this, you can see that stone right there does not move an inch, and that is exactly what we're looking to do. So now that loop comes around, lines up nicely with this stone right here. So we're going to go ahead and select and choose Break Stones, and we already have a stone right there. So all I need to do is come over. We're just going to click. Let's see here. We're going to break both sides of those. So now this stone is all by itself, right? So now I can drag it over here, make a duplicate, select the original, and hold my Shift key down and click Add Stones. And you see how it creates a line of stones? And then I can grab my Shape tool and give it just a little bit of curvature. And now we have our letter S. So if I go back to Enhance mode here, so there is my letter S in all its glory. And I can see it really looks good. Let me just pull it over by itself. There we go. So now it's all over by itself, and I'm pleased with how that looks. And so I would just go ahead and choose, continue on my way. We've already got the letter Y done. So like, for example, if I want to do the letter P here, same thing. I just come down, click, click, come up, click, click, and click. Grab my Shape tool, select all those lines, hit the Convert to Curve, and we'll do the cusp node thing again. And we pull this line segment down, push this one out a little bit, push this one out a little bit. We can fine tune how this looks. So we can pull that, spread this out a little bit at the bottom, grabbing those arrows. That looks a little bit better. Then this here we can pull. Click on the end, and we can really fine tune it and get it exactly the way we want it. And then the same thing here. We can again fine tune it, get it exactly the way we want it. We'll right click and choose Smooth. That smooth that out, and right click here and choose Smooth, and that will smooth that out. So there is our letter P. So if I come out here and I just grab my letter P and bring it out all by its lonesome, if I add stones to it, so there are our stones, we'll right click, and then all I have to do is adjust where this intersects right here. So let's go back to wireframe mode, and we'll just make a small adjustment. So we can just kind of tweak it a little bit, tweak it, till we get it just exactly the way we want it. And then down here we do have to finesse that a little bit, but that's okay. So we'll break those stones apart, and we can massage these stones a little bit. Very, very little editing there. Go back to wireframe or enhanced mode here, and you can see looks very good. Nice letter P there, and we would just go ahead and continue that process for every single letter in the design. Like I said, it's about a 30-minute process, but then you have a really great looking design. It's perfect, and there's not a lot of editing of the stones, so your spacing between stones is going to be really spot on. And that's just another technique to take an existing design and convert it into rhinestones. So hopefully that gives you enough idea of how to finish this design, and maybe give you some techniques on designs of your own. Thanks for watching.